the exterior networks. So.
So you think there's a lack of understanding? No, or it's just because it doesn't impact them, they don't do it?
Yes, kind of, but and also some security concern, as I mentioned in my presentation. They don't have, I don't think they have a thorough understanding of the RPK. They just think if they use the RPK, they will rely heavily on the registry from a foreign country.
Okay.
But, you know, RPK data is just one input for your routing decision, right? And you can do some local control. So don't worry. But they don't have the thorough understanding. So we'll keep on to do more RPK literacy in China. And but all in all, I think the biggest roadblock is incentive.
Incentive. I mean, it's a good enough an incentive if entities start dropping all the invalids.
Yes, incentive.
Right? It would be good enough incentive because AT&T is already dropping invalids.
Yeah.
And there are some operators from China mainland with a lot of invalids. So, yeah, it could be incentive. But, yeah, I mean, it's probably take some time. So, next, who's next? Come on.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm representing Cambodia Network Exchange via the IXP in Cambodia.
And you are new.
And I'm new, and I get a T-shirt. Lovely. One of the biggest problems I see in Cambodia is that the network engineers who might know something about that do not have access to the APNIC tools. Simply as that. They can't log in and changes. And if they go to the CTO and says, can I have access to the APNIC tools? The CTO asks, why? Oh, I want to add ROAS. Why? Because it's the right thing to do? No, I don't want to give you access. Sorry. So you simply don't, the people who know cannot do it. So it would be a nice push from APNIC in the yearly billing statement to say, guys, you have to do it. So they would get the push from an official source that basically like, you know, you have forgotten to actually verify that you own that. So somebody could steal it. Please let your network engineer do the job. Or just letting them know how can you delegate access in the APNIC tool to your network engineers to actually maintain that without losing control over the account. I think that knowledge is simply not there.
So it's more of a member engagement
at the level who has the keys. So
yeah.
some organizations
so
only the CTO has the login.
The corporate contact, right? So member engagement to the corporate contact level where they can make that decision.
Yes, right. And the way in is through the billing email because it's officially from you billing to, they raise the issue here, contact your technical department, you haven't done that.
So can I make a comment that goes to this? When you issue high trust objects, it's important that the consent component about who is saying is a high trust contact. And for almost all entities who have state in APNIC, the only original high trust contact is the billing contact, because the billing contact or the CEO signed a contract and pays money. So the horrible situation is that what we have to try to do is mediate trust from these people over to the NOC operational BGP speakers, but we can't just transitively say, oh, we know you, you know me, here's your password, let's let you do this. We had to, in our model, in our mental model, we had to say, but you need to be a high trust person. We have to have established credentials in you, certificates typically, or two-factor auth, that means we really know not only you are you, but you're entitled to make these assertions. Because unlike just configuring your own BGP on your router, you're now invoking our HSM to sign over statements you're making. And so we thought, rightly or wrongly, trust. Don't allow trust to pass through untrusted hands. And I think we may have made the barrier too high, and we need your input, perhaps on our mailing list about service, to discuss this. But what was in our head and our heart was we need to trust you in digital terms online to empower you to do this. And unfortunately, it's finance and senior signing staff who have that trust. It's a flaw in the model, if you like.
I don't think it's a flaw in general, but a push from APNIC coming to say, talk to your network engineers about doing this would go a long way, because then you have a two-folded input, once from
Yeah.
APNIC, and then the
And,
engineer
and I
says,
can imagine many processes that could get over a barrier and say, not only come and do this, but could you show us some government-issued ID so we can confirm things and get you to the higher trust state, for instance?
yeah, that would go a long way. My point is here that I feel a lot of people just don't have the access who could do
Yep,
it.
I mean, APNIC has probably taken notice of that, the member engagement.
Maybe one solution would be to. Thank you. I completely agree with the corporate system.
I agree.
But I hear you when you say the corporate guy doesn't want to give corporate level privilege to a tech guy. I have the corporate level because I needed to activate the ROR. So now I have them. But I don't need them. So maybe, I don't know, another box to tick. Like, okay, this guy is my tech. He can do the ROR, but he will not be able to access the billing system and all the rest. Just have another box to tick.
That's what I said.
Yep,
Improvement
yep,
in
yep.
delegation system.
Yeah, so the privileges levels should be good enough to.
The
yes.
corporate will decide who will be able to access, because he is the most privileged one. But then the tech guy will just have an extra access, so he can manage his route, his DNS, reverse, blah blah, and the route.
Yep. Okay. Good. As long as APNIC is taking note of that one, I mean, that's the whole purpose of it.
Hi, I'm
Mars
Mars
again.
from IIJ. So yes, we need to improve the UI to make easy to issue ROA, but also need to improve the UI to reduce fear, also misunderstanding with the functionality, right? So your ROA should match your announcement, right? So, but in this UI, you cannot check such a actual BGP announcement or from that AS. And also that UI is a bit confusable for me. So to issue ROA, you need to go to the routes section, then create route. Then need to input the prefix and the origin AS and the MSA, the max prefix length, and need to check whether or both ROA or whois.
Yep.
And there is no description of the whois or ROA. So we need a more description there. What's
I mean,
happened by enabling the check?
Adding pop-up question marks with every
So-
field would be a much better.
So we have been having intense conversations with our UX designer about this, because we actually had to go into this space because of a failure to import some historical data into this. And we had a conversation with our UX designer saying, but we need to do this one change. And she looked at the GUI and her initial statement was, no, George, you need to start at the beginning. So we already have an internal drive to reconsider many of these points.
Okay.
Is it okay that I hog the microphone so much? Because I don't want to defend. I am really saying you're right. But what may contextually not be clear is that we are trying to implement an abstract routing model because we are in a transitional state and we want to bridge the information gap between IRR and RPKI. And our intent was, this is how you define your abstract model. But it can't do everything. And so we have to make it say, maybe don't put this in whois because it's too complicated. Or maybe don't do this as a rower. I need to be this in whois to make something else happen. So we drove into a place of good intent because of wanting to have a model that fed two things. But the feedback you're giving is immensely valuable. And I think we will go into our room with our UX people and say, please help us find the style of interface that makes this work for the community, because it obviously doesn't work for you. We need to do a lot better.
Oh yeah, and
Okay.
probably we can make a new working group or a small group to improve such kind of the
And
UI.
a group that can provide that input and feedback and participate in that is exactly what I would like. So as Secretariat, we don't get to say, please form a working group, but you're making statements that go to why I would like one to exist.
Thank you. Thank you, George. Thank you, Maz.
Yasser from 7
Yep.
Like moving forward with the same question, that who is managing the account, like maybe it's CTOs or general manager normally. Like the process again maybe seems to be a review by the APNIC. It's like when you have to enable the ROA, you have to go to the resources, then enable the TOTP, installing the validator in your phone, then match it, log out, again log in, create resources, then create object, then ROA. So maybe the general manager or CTO,
I understand your point. Okay, so one more thing. What we learned from the deployathon. Process works if it is well defined, no matter how difficult it is. If it is very well defined and it gives you a clear indication what to do. People came up, they say, oh, we cannot find RPKI because there was no TOTP, right? It's not defined anywhere. So it was like giving them example, this, you do this. So yeah, again, as George says, a thorough review of the UX is much needed. Yep, Gaurav. We are running out of time, so that's why.
I think I agree with the review of the UX because, George, do you think our current trust model needs improvement or it's just the UX? Because it's two different topics. Because earlier, when I was talking, and the gentleman over there was talking, I believe the trust model is fine, as I think you said, but the UX needs improvement.
So I need to ask if you're prepared to talk with your EC hat off and your Amazon hat on. So can I speak to Gaurav from Amazon for a brief minute?
Yes? I have multiple accounts on my APNIC, so...
So if you imagine a world where I am about to do BYO and I'm doing business to business with you, what you currently will accept from me as proof that I control the resources that you're about to engage with and originate inside Amazon is a really interesting question, because it's a grey space, right? You've been thinking we need to do better. So for you as an entity looking at B2B, business to business, looking at provisioning, you looked out in the universe of what proofs exist and you didn't like what you saw. So there are a couple of models. There's the Google model. Here's a long hash string. Put that in an object somewhere, and if I can see it, that means you have write permission over that object. I'll trust you. And they'll do that in the DNS or in the web. That's one model. It's, to me, a very frightening model because lots of people can put things in websites and make it look like they have control. You made a different decision. You said, you know, guys, we'd really like to see the crypto proofs that you really control this. And if you can use the crypto proofs in the public hierarchy to make a crypto object, we've got strong proofs that you really control this. And we will make it part of the BYO Origin AS.
Yes.
So what that says to me, if you flip back and you put your EC hat back on, that says those high trust keys are actually valuable to entities in business to business. Watering down trust in our RPKI in the RIR framework would reduce value to significant moments of expression here. And that's the signal I'm working with. Yes, we need to make it easier for people to get in the door, but we don't want to make it so easy that people look at the crypto products and say, yeah, but anyone could have made that. We need to keep hold of, you've got to be real.
I think I agree with you, George. I don't think we would go and weaken anything that we have, but I was more concerned about the trust model for authenticating against the MyAPNIC more than the crypto itself.
So we have been careful to retain current technology in that space, and our higher trust statement is not going to dilute to a single token or password. It has to be
two factors.
It has to be two factors,
yes.
And it has to be that because we established a contract with you and or have finance proofs in you, you can bestow these rights on other people.
I think that's where I think that trust model works, and that is a requirement, right? I don't think we're going to change that, right?
No, that's fine.
So that is fine, but if the user interface, when I use our current user interface, and this is true for almost all the RIRs, seems like we're trying to fit the Web 2.0 generation into what we're doing in the late 90s, right? Fit it into a model of how we built that weird thing called RPSL, and we build our interfaces for RPSL way back, and we're trying to retrofit RPKI into this with the new generation of folks that, pretty much everybody is okay with two-factor authentication, right?
Yeah.
But once you even log inside my APNIC or the RI portal, it requires so many steps and so much intimate knowledge of what you are actually doing in order to get it done right.
Absolutely.
Right? Pretty sure in my long, tenure creating route objects at APNIC, I made a lot of mistakes, and I still make. And not because I don't know what I'm doing, but because the interface was probably imported from when it was based on emails. And that's where I think the UX probably needs a big change and complete new approach without actually diluting. But I think the question there then becomes, should we assume some things or we should not, right? Because in our current model, we assume that you know RPSL, and so you can go and create all these things,
Yep.
and you have a fundamental understanding or actually more than the fundamental understanding of RPKI to go and do your stuff, right? And that's why you see this, you create an ROA at a ROA party, and then it doesn't get, it goes out of order or something happens, or people go and create they'll go and deaggregate the prefix, and they suddenly realize they don't know how to do it, and they stop, then it becomes invalid, and so it suddenly goes out of. So is that a UX problem, or we just need to educate people more? I think that is going to be the key question when we do the UX going forward. Right? Otherwise, you'll still continue to have this problem.
Yep, I agree.
Right?
Joe.
I think a different perspective that I would like to offer is when we started with RPKI years ago, it was presented as an entirely separate thing from IRR. Even the name was different. IRR is 3 letters, RPKI is 4 letters, there's a K in one. And I think we kind of complicated the situation back then by presenting it as this entirely different thing with different technologies, different software. For instance, in the RIPE region, how you create route objects, every button, the design of things, the colors of what you are looking at is very different from how you create ROAs. And if we accept that people perhaps understand how route objects work, or that is a thing, and that RPKI is actually not a separate thing, because if we look at how we are now treating IRR, NTT is importing RPKI data into its IRR and expressing RPKI data as IRR so it can interact with legacy systems. We are using RPKI data to scrub or clean IRR data, to delete IRR data that is in conflict with RPKI. What is happening is that IRR and RPKI already are sort of merging into one thing. And if we approach RPKI and rebrand it and say, this is just IRR version 2. IRR is going to die. It's going away. And we design the user interfaces to facilitate a decade-long transition from one unencrypted plain text thing to the better thing that is RPKI, or I mean IRR version 2, that may be beneficial. Because if we can leverage any knowledge that exists with operators about IRR and help them understand what the similarities are between RPKI and IRR by showing that they're actually not different and serve the same purpose, that may make things easier. And if we look at, for instance, IPv6, I think as a community, this is where we failed.
instead of saying it will be like IPv4, but it's bigger, which is what we did with BGP large communities. We literally said, remember BGP communities? Large communities are exactly the same, but just 3 times as big. Only difference. With IPv6, we said, not only is it bigger, but instead of ARP, we have neighbor discovery, and we have this, and we have that, and IPv6 does not even look like IPv4. And I think this has hindered some of the deployment because people need to receive duplicate training. And if we think that RPKI will replace IR, if that is the direction we are heading, and I think that's already happening, then acknowledging that they should feel the same maybe be useful.
Yeah, and maybe APNIC should bring back the IRM, the Internet Resource Management, which...
In some ways, what Job is arguing for is what we are trying to do. The abstract model that we promote needs to have a box on it that says, you can't do everything in this model. This model is a simple model. If you need to do more complex things, tick a box and go expert mode. But if you want to live in a world where what you say in crypto is reflected in what IRR believes, walk in here. And what we try to do is make the 2 worlds cohere. So the MaxLen problem, the tree of products that we necessarily make in route object terms, is a symptom of that desire. And our limit in the abstract model that says, sorry, you're trying to do too much here, is precisely because of that problem. Now, if my esteemed colleague from NTT was able to modify RPSL in his engine and either make it respond for max length, as if the route object existed when you ask for the specific lengths that are allowed, and not answer if they're blocked, or if the word max length was added to the RPSL syntax, we wouldn't have to populate a forest of objects and the problem would go away. So at one level, over beers, we have strong agreement of what we're trying to do, make the world look the same in both places. But what Job is saying here is, maybe you don't need to make the world look the same, maybe you need to understand they are the same and work with the tools to make it work properly. And it's a UX problem. And I think I'm going to be pleading for an opportunity to have our UX people engage with you in the community and understand what you want from us. Because I want to offer the best service I can, but I need to know what you want.
So I cannot create a /32 route object.
In 4 or 6?
In the APNIC.
Do you have a 22?
Right, /32.
32?
On v4.
No, because the distance between the allocation unit...
But I can create a ROA for /32 in the UI, a /24,
if you
MFA
disable the whois component. But the UX design that says you can't cohere both worlds if you do this has been badly stated.
Yeah, so if I disable whois...
you can do anything.
Yeah, I can do anything. Right? And that's why, because it's been treated differently.
I'll do anything for you.
Joe, please.
Anything.
Come on.
Maybe that film is too old.
We talked a little bit about watering things down. I want to emphasize that if watering down happens, it should not happen on the RPKI side.
Absolutely.
So it is fair to say this cool feature does not work in IRR. Tough luck. But we're deprecating IR anyway. Then people are like, oh, okay. So we don't necessarily need to retrofit. We don't need to jam RPKI into the old world. It's okay to burn parts of the old world. Like, do we as a community actually agree that IRR will go away? Okay, we have 5 supporters. I take it.
Yes, I'll force them to. I have a box full of T-shirts. So, okay, so quickly, Taiji last, and then we could be closing the queue, and then we have one very important question before we go for drinks.
Hi, I am Taiji from JP.
No pressure, Taiji.
I agree with the considering on UX we have two systems, and additionally, I think for IP address holders, the UX is also important, I think.
Absolutely, agree. Noted. And the thing is, not just the community, and NIRs are part of this community, and they, whatever APNIC implement, NIR have to take them back to their community as well. So it's a bigger question. So just to summarize this one, right? So we have spent more than half a day on one topic, right? And here it is. There must be many, many questions. Some of you are not willing to ask those questions today. Probably because it's just too complicated. Probably you're just saying, well, I don't know, let me see how it goes, right? Just testing the water. That's what we saw in the deploy-a-thon as well, which is saying, oh, we just want to see how it works first. So probably you are on that stage. Probably you are just trying to learn more things, right? But who's going to answer those questions moving forward, right? We have been doing this. I started this BoF first time ever in Phnom Penh in Cambodia when we had this APNIC meeting. And since then, I've been doing it with different names with the same theme. Network security, routing security, RPKI, routing security, RPKI, routing security, RPKI, right? It's sometimes you have to bring things in the streamline. And my request and my suggestion to the community is make this topic a streamlined topic. We are doing BoFs. BoFs are sidelined. I think for the very first time we are webcasted as a BoF. It doesn't happen, right? And we have that many people. We have EC sitting here. We have RIPE NCC board sitting here who are just trying to understand and providing their feedback. It's an opportunity. I would like to take this opportunity and bring this topic to streamline. And would like to suggest, if we can, if the community agrees, make this as a BoF, make it as a SIG rather just keep doing as a BoF. It's just a suggestion, but I would like to emphasize this is important. The only way you can do this efficiently is to bring it to the main program rather than doing it after hours when half of the attendees are gone, right? So it's my request, but it's up to you to decide. I cannot decide. Joe.
In computer science, there is nothing better than the discussion of how do we name things. How many here have been in host name discussions?
No underscore.
So I would say what we are experimenting here with, what we are discussing, is not necessarily the routing security special interest group. Because if any signer proceeds, that's not routing, that's business interactions. This is not necessarily the RPKI special interest group, because we're also thinking about effects on IRR. We may want to discuss sunsetting IRR in some ways or shapes. It's definitely not an IPv6 specific thing.
Definitely not.
So maybe we need a technical special interest group that is mandated.
Or operational.
Operational or technical.
I mean, no debate on the
Here
name.
we go.
No debate on the name. Sorry, I took it back just right there.
I would like to observe that yesterday we formally announced that we have opened the APNIC services mailing list, which is designed precisely as a list for that interface into us from you as the technical community. It is focused on the products that expresses protocols, reverse DNS, WHOIS, RPSL, these kinds of things. If I break bounds, I don't believe a list is enough, and I would support what you are saying, Aftab, but it has to be visibly a community desire.
So the APNIC services list is run by the APNIC services team. I need a community-driven initiative named XYZ in capital.
And there needs to be a place for people in this region to launch questions like, who has had success deploying origin validation on version XYZ of software ABC? That's not an APNIC services specific question.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not a policy question either. Where do you go? AP Ops, but AP Ops exists outside APNIC and is not that active. So technical special interest group.
I just wanted to answer the question on the screen. There's the amount of mail that goes on the PolicySig mailing list is not very huge between two APNIC meetings. So we could start on it, see what it goes, and then from there, if we start to receive a certain amount of emails, then maybe switch to something dedicated to it. But still, for this kind of thing, having to subscribe to a mailing list and receive the mails and everything, read the mails, it's getting more and more people are not reading emails anymore because they receive too many of them. So maybe something like Discourse or something easily accessible. So you can just go on, read, and if you want to participate, it's easier.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I agree. So the one problem, I mean, we discussed this on bringing it, like the PolicySig charter is wide enough to bring any topic in. Yeah. The only problem I have is the audience, right? So the PolicySig audience is very wide and diverse, right? So yeah, and it's not very, I mean, they'll find it as noise if we start, if somebody asks on that, if Routinator 0.06 is working for you or not. They'll find it as a noise, right? And that's the only reason why I'm trying to say, well, let's have a separate platform, even if you have to discuss rubbish, which is related to IRRD or RPSL or the RPKI, let's have it on that platform. That's the only point of view I have. So it's like, if you want to discuss something, you know, this is the boundary where people with the same interest are here. It's not, another problem in our region mostly is you will not be judged on anything. This is only specifically for this purpose. It's not policy related. It has no consequences of any type. Let's have an open, candid discussion on that mailing list where operators can share their opinion and APNIC services, they say, well, hang on a second, we are planning to do this. Do you have any opinion on this one? That opinion doesn't matter for the PolicySig audience, right? But that discussion can bring a topic to be discussed at PolicySig. So my AS0 ROA policy, right, going off track slightly, has really good raised really good 4 questions. In the policy, we will discuss it tomorrow. But I know half of the audience say, well, I don't know about these questions. It doesn't make any difference to me. Should we have a separate tell for bogons? And people will be like, I don't know. So it's like this decision should be made in a very informed audience, saying, well, this is the reason why I need a separate tell. And then that discussion should be brought back to PolicySig, saying that the technical community decided that it's good to have a separate tell or not to have a separate tell. So this is my personal opinion. I cannot enforce anything because it has to be consensus-based decision. So that's my point of view. These two, and then we are closed.
Okay. I have to in reply to the questions. I think we do need a separate platform for RPKI topics. And whether we should have put this in PolicySig, absolutely not, because RPKI issues is more than policy. At IETF, standards defining the RPKI was developed at a CIDR working group, which, by the way, has been concluded, yes. And a new working group is called CIDR Ops, has just been formed. Why? Because the community think the basic standards of our PKI system is ready, is mature, but we are entering an era of how to use RPK-related technologies in existing and new networks. So operation is quite significant. So, but whether we should have a working group or SIG, I'm not sure, because if once we have a working group or SIG, maybe we should have a good charter. We have target. I'm not sure this kind of working group or SIG at APNIC can produce some specific outcome. I'm not sure, but we do need a separate platform. And for information, at ICANN community, there is a DNS symposium held, I guess, annually. So maybe we can have an RPK symposium supported by APNIC community 2 times or once a year, and maybe a side event with APNIC meeting or APRICOT meeting, something like that. So in conclusion, I'm in favor of to establish a separate platform for RPK topics, and it's absolutely well. My answer to the second question is we can't put this issue in a policy SIG because we need to talk about more.
Okay, perfect. Gaurav.
Okay, I think I'm the last person. Set some expectations and boundaries, having done this for way too many years. Working group in APNICs are set up with a fixed target and a fixed skill, fixed start and end. So if that is what we want, then that is a way.
That's why I suggested SIG.
Special interest groups go a different way. There is a complete manual on the website that helps you do that. We used to have a routing SIG that we disbanded many years ago. And to echo what Batoa just said, you're not going to see any more emails, no matter how many mailing lists you set up. And I think the benefit of the forum is the meetings we have. Right? There are plenty of mailing lists where people can go and discuss stuff.
Yep.
Right? I don't think a mailing list is a thing at all. I would even say that you don't need a mailing list.
Probably we can set up a Slack channel.
Yeah, Slack channel or, whatever works. So that is probably not going to be a major thing on whether you need an extra mailing
The reason
list
to bring it in a streamline means it's part of the main program rather than a sideline.
That is a double-edged sword. Again, I've been with the APRICOT and multiple events. One reason you see pretty decent participation in the BoF is it is not conflicting with almost any other technical topic. At APRICOT, if you have a mainstream program, you'll be running against other things which might be important for people, and you might be running against the policy SIG, which might mean that you dilute your audience heavily, right? Whereas at the standalone APNIC meetings, it will help you a lot because there's not much going on the sides, so it doesn't really make a difference how we organize it, right? So that is something you have to be very cautious that at the bigger meeting at APRICOT, you might actually get a complete dilution of your audience if you remove it from the evening slot to something that competes with the daytime slot, and you are on the APRICOT board, so you know as well that you can't make it a single track event, right? And so that is an issue that you'll have to look at. But as a poll, how many of us here think we need a SIG to do this? Raise your hands. A new SIG?
Turn around, yes.
How many of you think we don't need to create more of this? Sessions, whatever we call it, working groups, SIGs? That seems like pretty good consensus.
I hope you're wearing the easy chair hat.
And we can bring this up again on the policy SIG, talk to people, see what we do. But I do think tech ops SIG is what probably I will call it, because these things will overlap with each other when we start talking about it. And I don't think we want to go on creating a DNSSEC ops SIG and IPv6 ops SIG and all that. So not a policy SIG is what you're looking for.
Non-policy SIG.
Yeah, so that is a tech ops SIG might be a better word, but
okay.
I think I'll warn you that bringing the program mainstream also can create dilution, especially at the APRICOT meeting.
We will still carry on with the RPKI signing BoFs.
Yeah.
So,
So that is, as a practical matter.
yes.
Because we've seen that happen, and because you are competing with other things.
Yes.
Right.
Technical
So-
session, another 6. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, or the
Right.
peering forum, for example, right? And yeah.
Okay.
We are leaving. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was productive. I've taken some pictures, so I'm gonna propose it back to the AMM, and we'll discuss it more on the policy SIG. And let's see what the AMM decides. I mean, it has to be decided at the AMM that whether we're gonna go with the SIG or not. But thank you again for your input. Unfortunately, I have to take all the T-shirts back home because you didn't speak up. But you still have a chance. You can come back to the RPKI signing BoF, ROA signing BoF, where it's the social, RPKI ROA signing social, where it is? Okay, it's somewhere. You'll find those shirts again. Thank you so much. Yes, so Mike and